Guys, after subscribing to this channel, please make sure that you also press the bell icon so that no notification, no new video of mine, any educational video is missed by anybody. Hello students, and I welcome you today to this lecture in which we are going to start with talking regarding the maternal pelvis and the fetus. We'll talk about the relationship between the maternal pelvis and the fetus, and also separately we'll talk about fetal skull and the various diameters associated with it. So this is the first lecture of its kind, and let's start now today with the fetus in utero, the relationship of the fetus with the maternal pelvis. So the first thing we'll talk about will be the fetal attitude. What is fetal attitude? It's actually the relationship of the various parts of the fetus with one another. That means if there is an attitude of extension, it is in relationship with one another, not in relationship with the maternal pelvis. Okay, so fetal attitude is an attitude of the fetal parts with one another, and usually the universal attitude is the attitude of flexion. The head is flexed at the neck, the two hands, they are flexed on the elbows, even the two legs, they are flexed on the knees, which is why I have taken this this doll, and this is how the attitude is. If there is slight deflection, it will create problems during the labor. It is going to create problems during delivery. If there is an attitude of extension, well, you know the story. So this is called fetal attitude. Now let's talk about fetal lie. What is fetal lie? Fetal lie is actually the long axis of the fetus in relationship to the long axis of the uterus. That means if suppose this is the uterus over here, this is the uterus over here, this will be a longitudinal lie. All right, this will be an oblique lie, because this is the long axis of the uterus and this is the long axis of the baby, and this will be transverse lie, because this is 90-degree angle now to the uterus. So if inside the uterus the baby is lying like this, even if the baby is lying like this, it's still a longitudinal lie, be it breech or cephalic. The lie is longitudinal. Okay, this becomes oblique and this becomes transverse inside the uterus. So the fetal lie is actually the longitudinal axis of the two. Now what is denominator? Denominator is that arbitrary bony fixed point over the presenting part in relationship to the maternal pelvis. Now for example, or just let's just talk about the bony part, about which we talk about the different positions. We'll talk about position later on. So let me first tell you the denominator. So if it's a cephalic presentation, the denominator is occiput. Okay, we talk about occiput, and we talk whether it's occipito anterior, occipito posterior, or occipito transverse, whatever it is. So right occipito posterior, left occipito. We'll talk about the position later on, but right now I'm talking about the arbitrary fixed bony point in relation to the maternal pelvis when we describe the position later on. So for cephalic presentation, it is occiput. For breech presentation, it is sacrum. For what else? For face presentation, it is mentum. And for shoulder presentation, if at all, it is the acromion process. Is there anything else which is left in fetal denominator? Hopefully not. Now let's talk about what is fetal position. Now fetal position is that particular denominator in relationship to the maternal pelvis. Now let's just show you the maternal pelvis. Now for example, this is the bony maternal pelvis. Now if suppose the whatever, let's talk about, let's say it's occiput over here. So occiput is right over here, then we talk it at left occipito anterior. This is right occipito anterior, this is right occipito posterior, and this is left occipito posterior. So we are talking about the denominator in various positions of various in relation to the maternal pelvis. This is what we call as position. So what I'm talking to right now, that is the relationship of the denominator with the maternal pelvis, is actually the position. After the position, we talk about presentation, and then the presenting part. So presentation, anything which lies on the outlet is called as the presentation. And the first most dependent fetal part that is presented at the birth canal, the first most dependent fetal part of the presentation that is first encountered upon in the birth canal, that is the presenting part. For example, It is definitely cephalic. The presentation is cephalic, but what I touch basically is not the occiput, but maybe, the parietal bone. So that becomes the presenting part. Or for example, if it is a transverse lie, the first thing that I'll touch will be either the hand, the prolapsed hand. So that becomes the presenting part. That means it's a compound presentation, and the presenting part that I can feel is the hand. So this was about just the gist of what exactly is the difference between the presenting part, position, light, so on and so forth. In the next segment, we'll take up the maternal pelvis.